Hello, and welcome to the Conscious Communion podcast, where we traverse through the inner dwellings of the human experience through conversation. I'm your host, Danae. Join me as we explore the interconnection of creativity and community. Matt Maulit is a strength and conditioning coach guiding others to an optimal level of fitness. He has a bachelor's in business administration and a master's in kinesiology with a certification in U.S. weightlifting and a specialization in strength and conditioning. Matt is a husband and a father living and working in Oceanside, California. I've known this incredible human for over 20 years, and I'm so honored to have him here for an intimate conversation on mental health and the importance of the whole body connection. Here is Matt Maulit. Hello.
Hello.
So nice to have you here. I'm so grateful. So
good to be here.
Yeah. Matt and I have been friends for over 20 years, like I mentioned, and we met in 6th grade. And due to some life complexities, we became very close very fast. He became like another sibling in my family. And again, for the past 20 years, we've been family.
Yeah.
Matt, do you want to share a little bit about how we got so close so fast?
Yes, definitely. So sadly, tragedy brought us closer together, which was the passing of my mother. So she battled leukemia for a whole year before finally succumbing to it. And so Danae did get to know my mom prior to her passing, which is rare for a lot of the friends I have today. I can only describe how my mom was to most of my friends. Danae actually got to experience it. And so hearing how she views my mom is a beautiful thing. And just hearing the memories that she has specifically with my mom is really cool to hear. But yeah, she unfortunately passed away, and thankfully, if anything great came out of it, is that Danae's family was there for me and my dad, like to the nth degree. So my mom passed, and my dad needed a lot of help getting me to school, and he's a CPA. He's an accountant. So if anybody's familiar with that line of work, it's very stressful, very busy. And so he's also a partner at his firm, which makes him even more busy on top of all that. So needless to say, he needed a lot of help raising his almost teenage son. And so you bring in Danae's family, and they lived close by. And so my dad would drop me off over there in the mornings. We'd all have breakfast together. I'd play with their little brother, Seth, and their dog. And we would just have fun. Like Danae said, I kind of became the third sibling, and her parents really took me in as one of their own. I still have close relationships with both of her parents. Her dad got me my first full-time job out of college. Her mom, I still text with, I would say weekly, if not bi-weekly. So just a lot of history there. But I think all in all, like what I'm trying to say is like, it takes a village to raise a kid. And my dad I found a tremendous part of that village in finding Danae and her family.
Yeah. And I'm so grateful that we did. Your dad has helped me just as much as, my parents helped you. It's a really beautiful thing how that interweaving of communities and family has created a really unique relationship between all of us. I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah. It just goes to show like if you can find the good people, because they are definitely out there. I know we're not I know we don't all have the best of intentions sometimes, but man, when you find them, it can turn into something beautiful, like a 21-year friendship. And I know our parents, you're up in Portland, I'm down in San Diego. Like, our parents hang out, even though we're nowhere nearby. And so, yeah, so there's a lot there. And I think it's just, I think when I came on today, or when you asked me to be on, I think it was only right to start there, because losing my mom affected my life so much. So obviously, especially when you're going through puberty, and as a boy, you're figuring things out and stuff. And that's when young boys need their moms most, probably. Dad's there to explain a lot of things. But mom's going to be there to kind of hold the ship together. And so I would just say, like, losing your mom at a young age, like, the biggest thing I wanted to really talk about is, I guess, like, just how that can affect you, and how our parents and the way they raise us can affect us even now. And you may not realize it until you're in your 30s, like we are now. Some of us, we all have different journeys, and we figure out things at different times. But so I think that's where I'd like to start. I don't want to take up all your airtime, so I don't know where you want that to go, or where I should even begin.
That's beautiful. No, I would love for you to share, because we intentionally talked about really what we wanted to talk about. And I believe that it's interesting that you have come to a place where you are now, where you are getting in touch with your emotions. You are starting to understand the importance of mental health when you specialize in physical health and the optimization of our human body and the potentials that this beautiful vessel can withstand.
Yeah.
But the mind is another piece to that. And you've really had to uncover that for yourself this year. And I would love for you to just share what that journey was like, how it started, and just share whatever feels present for you in that experience.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You talk about the body and the mind, and I would certainly say in the past year, I have certainly learned that the mind is the bigger piece of that. And I can say that with a master's in exercise science. Like, you would think about this scientist who's all about factual stuff, and this does this to your muscles. But now with the experience I've had, it's like, if you can't get your mind on board with whatever you want to do, then you're never going to be successful. So that goes for literally anything and everything. So I guess where to begin with that would be going back to how I was raised. I think we all have traumas throughout our life that shape us. Nobody has life without trauma. If there is a person out there who has zero trauma in their life, I would love to meet them and see the type of person they are. And I'm not judging them by any means. I just want to see what they're like. I don't know. I picture almost like the 40-year-old virgin, Steve Carell, like just super happy with his action figures and stuff like that. But yeah, so how I was molded on one half of things. We talked about my mom, but my dad, love my dad, but super hard on me, incredibly hard on me. And that's where a lot of my childhood trauma definitely comes from, is being punished for essentially not being perfect, especially when it came to like school. School was really the main thing that we butted heads on. There was other things too here and there, but it was usually like the fear that I had in him resided around bringing my report card home with like a C on it or something like that. And I was like deathly afraid. When I say afraid, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I was terrified of my father, and he never hit me or anything like that. There was never any physical ramifications or anything like that. It was just emotional abuse. And so, so when I lost my mom, I essentially lost my protector. I lost the calming voice. I lost the compassionate voice. I lost the voice that would always say, "It's going to be okay, mijo," which means son in Spanish for your listeners who don't speak Spanish. I lost that. And so that voice got buried underneath a ton of self-attack, a ton of self-punishment. And so now here in my 30s, after everything I've gone through the past year, which we can talk a little bit about, I'm trying to rediscover that compassionate voice. I'm trying to talk to myself more gently. So I'm working on self-talk, as it's more commonly known. So I don't know. Do you want to give me a place to go with all that? That's a lot.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being vulnerable, because I know that that's part of this puzzle for you. I think that there's a lot of complexities around being a young man, losing your mom, and men in this country are done a disservice when it comes to mental health and the support that they need to feel safe, to explore, and essentially just let that part of themselves shine, because it's a part of us and there's nothing wrong with it. But there's a sense of shame that's attached to folks, especially in the United States, I'd say, around emotions for males.
Yeah, definitely. Like, therapy is certainly something culturally and by gender that is put into this corner. And it's unfortunate because it can help us open so many doors for ourselves. Like, just self-understanding can help us all leave like such fuller lives, such happier lives, to be honest, because people don't know how to deal with their emotions at the end of the day. And that's where I wouldn't say all people, I don't want to generalize everyone, but typically we don't know how to deal with our emotions. We don't know how to feel certain emotions. So that specific emotion for me is the feeling of shame. And I'll talk a little bit about like how I'm able to identify these emotions and stuff. Just remind me in case I fall off track, because that is a piece that I definitely want to talk about. But yeah, when I identified that the feeling of shame is something that I do not deal well with, like, it unlocked a lot of power for me. Just like knowing like, okay, I'm feeling shame right now, and I know this emotion and it can't hurt me. And I'm probably just being hard on myself right now for this thought that I had. It wasn't even an action. It was a thought. And so that's how severe this can be when you don't understand how to deal with certain emotions. You will literally start punishing yourself for a thought. And you just don't need to do that, obviously. We all have thoughts. And so it's definitely shame for me, the emotion that's painful to deal with. And what we all do and how we deal with those emotions is different. Like, some of us turn to substance. And that's why you have AA and things like that. And some of us turn to other avenues. And for me, it was a lot of self-attack. I never hurt myself or anything like that. But just like we talk about, I really need to just talk about this next part because I keep referring to it, but we talk about lashings, like giving yourself lashings, like how many lashings do you need before, okay, that's enough punishment. I'll move on with my day and enjoy my life now. And, so that's what I've been working on a lot over the past year, is just going easier on myself, not only for the mistakes I make daily, but for all the mistakes I've made over 34 years of life, because that's how severe this is. Like, I can find myself one day punishing myself for something I did at the age of 16, and that was 18 years ago. And so when you deal with shame and you try to avoid shame so much, like, you're just striving for perfection. And so when you're not perfect, you start to punish yourself. And that's not a way to live, because nobody's perfect. I guess what I'm ultimately here to talk about is just to talk about how to go easier on yourself, how to be more compassionate and show yourself some self-love, like, and how that can be a learned process if it's not something that's instilled in you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, what has your learning process been like? Because I know that it really became apparent this year that there were no other options, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting that anxiety, and in whatever form it may be, also shows up in the body. Mm-hmm. And because you have intimately dealt with the body and the inner workings of how those mechanics work, I would be curious for you to share the intellectual aspects of that feeling in the body and anxiety, and how it was showing up, and then how it then manifested into this thing that you had to deal with. It was non-negotiable. So what got you to that point, to it being, okay, I have no other options. This needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. Yeah. So you make a lot of good points there, and a lot of things I can talk about for sure. And I'm going to definitely answer your question. But I think the answer is certainly complex, and I have to tell you a story to get you to understand it. So, I think the first piece being becoming a parent. So like Danae mentioned, I am a new parent, certainly new in the grand scheme of things. I've got a daughter who's about to be 2. And when I really started to like fall into darkness, I would say, but that's maybe like a negative way of looking at it, falling into darkness, but maybe just kind of like being reborn, right? Learning more about myself and going to this dark place to ultimately come out a better person happened when my daughter was around 1 year old. So almost a year ago. And I would say it's just, it's definitely trauma. It's just having a child is so much pressure. Like, you are life is no longer about you. It's about that person you're raising. And you have, for me at least, being the self-punisher, self-attacker I am, I had a lot more to lose. I had a beautiful wife. I got a beautiful daughter. I got a beautiful family. Everything was kind of going in the right direction for me. And I took a stumble like any human being does. And I just got a little too drunk on a vacation. And it just didn't even do anything wrong. But me, again, being the person who's super hard on myself, like I woke up the next day and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Like, did I do anything wrong? Like I started to do what we call catastrophizing. So much so that next morning, like I went to my mother-in-law, I went to my father-in-law, and I apologized to them for getting that drunk. And I told them, like, I'm so sorry. I even broke down into tears because I was feeling that shame. Like I was just feeling so much shame that morning where like nothing bad even happened. Like people go on vacation. We were in Cabo. People go on vacation with their families all the time, get too drunk, wake up, and then do it again the next day. And so here I was. Same thing happened for me. This is just a super casual drunk night in Mexico. But I woke up the next morning and I was just rocked with shame. And that was when I was like, oh gosh, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's just like I was feeling that shame because of how much I had to lose. I think I had the catastrophic thought of like, oh my gosh, Matt, if you screw up, you're going to lose your wife and you're going to lose your daughter. And I just started to attack myself for that. And so that ultimately led me to a place where I was in that fight or fight loop constantly for like the following week, 2 weeks, where I was just hammering myself. I could not get out of my own head. Like I was just going through not even just the event of getting too drunk on vacation, but I started to dig up all these other things from my past in my relationship with my wife that I wasn't proud of, and started to punish myself for those again, like they had happened the night before. And so it just, like I said, I kind of got stuck in that fight or flight loop because I'm literally pulling up every little thing I'm not proud of in my past, every secret, everything that makes you feel negative emotions. And I was feeling them. Like I was just in it. And it was depression, it was anxiety, and it was intense. Like when I say intense, like people who are listening to this who have experienced intense trauma, intense anxiety, intense depression, like I was in it. I was there. And I didn't know how to get out. It was 24/7. It was around the clock. Every minute, every second felt like an hour. And I didn't know what to do. And thankfully, my wife is a mental health therapist herself. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. And she was giving my family and I a ton of guidance, saying like, okay, he definitely needs to find a therapist. But then I also had found out that there's these programs that are intensive outpatient therapy. So you literally go to these programs like 3-4 days a week. And then you also have in like a group therapy setting. And then you also have individual therapy. And then you also see a psychologist, like a med doctor, to potentially get onto anti-anxiety, anti-depression medication. And so she told my family and I about those, and we found one and just called them, and I got in there the following Monday. So this was after like a week of just struggling, like not knowing how I'm going to get to the next day. And I got there that Monday, and this place was called Bold Health. It's in Encinitas, California, down here in San Diego. And that's where I started to really learn about like everything, not only upstairs, but like you said, that mind-body connection. And I wouldn't say they really harped on the physical. Yeah, I guess they would. I would say that. Because what they really do is they help you identify where you're feeling emotions in your body. And so there was a couple of things, even right now, you see me take a deep breath. There was a couple of things that I learned there, not even a couple, tons of things I learned there, about how I hold emotions. And how I even hold my breath. 'Cause like sometimes I'd be sharing in group, and they had this chair called the bold seat where you sit up in front of everybody and you just talk about a problem of yours. And I would sit there and I would tell whatever it was I was ready to talk about that day. And one of the therapists one day told me, curious if you've ever noticed that you hold your breath quite a bit. And I was like, no, I never even realized. And so now I just catch myself like, oh man, I feel my anxiety going up. I'm not breathing as much. And it's like when your body doesn't like get oxygen, clearly it wants to perceive that it's not safe. And so breathing is just the quickest and easiest way to be like, okay, I'm okay. So they helped me recognize things like that, different indicators of like, this is how this feels. This is how that feels. I learned that when I get angry, like I just feel this sphere of fire in the middle of my chest. Like I just want to like scream or something. I learned that when I'm really sad, like I start to feel that in the back of my throat, and like I'll frown or like my forehead will get tight. And so yeah, this place was really helpful. It was like a 10-week program. It was a lot, obviously, because you're forced to face your demons and you're forced to face things in the past, and they help you. This place helped me realize what I needed to do to live a healthier life mentally. And some of those things that they helped me realize, they weren't easy. They definitely weren't easy to deal with. But if you are going to free yourself, truly like free yourself of everything you hold on to, you may have to do some things that you don't want to do. And it's not fun, but emotions can't kill you. And so just really truly learning how to feel it and to be brave enough to take that leap, or just don't judge yourself enough. Don't judge yourself to take that leap, whether you do it or not. Like just being okay with what is what I really learned there. And then just that compassionate, self-loving voice is something that I really learned I need to do. And it's something that I'm still working on to this day. So hopefully that at least ties things back to the mind-body connection that you were talking about.
Yeah, it sure does. I think it's interesting because it's almost this opportunity that we get when we experience those hard things to reparent ourselves as adults. And I think it's interesting because culture plays a role, right? And I think our culture, specifically Latin culture, coming from that machismo, stern, don't process your emotions. We both were raised with that energy. Yeah. And it's interesting to me that we both struggled with the same thing. And when it was time for you to feel safe and share with me what you were going through, that you actually needed support and that you wanted to be transparent, that I had never shared with you my own experience and how we were able to connect in that way because we both experienced that fight or flight response in the body where we didn't feel safe almost at all times.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would punish ourselves for not feeling safe because it's not what we were taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what have you been doing to reparent yourself and to teach yourself these new patterns that are now supporting you in your life today?
Oh man, definitely more therapy. I'll probably be in therapy the rest of my life, and that's not a bad thing. because it's just going to always help me to, one, like, be more compassionate with myself. Like, that reparenting voice is like, I can't tell you how many times my therapist has told me to put myself in the shoes I'm in now and talk to 11-year-old Matt, 5-year-old Matt, 13-year-old Matt. Like, because, I mean, I'm sure a lot of your audience has heard about like generational trauma and stuff like that, and how it kind of stops with us, the people who get more aware of themselves. And hopefully we start raising more aware human beings. So it's just, it's definitely an ongoing process, because even this morning I was probably doing some of my self-punishment. Even after this call, I'll probably do some of my self-punishment, and I have to try to take a pause. And I have found that using my mom's voice is very beneficial. I'll talk to myself as if I'm my mom. I'll pretend that I can literally hear her saying things like, "Go easy on yourself. I love you. It's going to be okay. Don't be so hard on yourself." Just like stuff like that, or like, you can love yourself. You're here now, and all that stuff is in the past. It's not you anymore. Things like that. Like, just recognizing now. And it's not easy. I will say that it's definitely a learned process. When you've been one way to yourself for 30 years, it's going to take time to unlearn that. And so it's not going to happen with the push of a button. That's something that I definitely am working on, is like reparenting myself, so that I can be present. Because if you're constantly in your thoughts, how are you going to raise a 2-year-old? And I have a son that will be born next month, in April. So how am I going to raise these 2 kids if I just can't be actually in the room? If I'm off a million miles away punishing myself on a thought, I can't be a helpful husband, can't be a helpful dad. So I certainly think it's just going to take a lot of work, but I at least have identified like what I need to do to be a better dad, husband, friend, so on and so forth. Does that answer the question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. It sure does. And I think it's important to tie it back to the fact that you started to feel these feelings with the pressures of being a father. Mm-hmm. And now you get to recreate this beautiful paradigm where it's, yes, you're doing it for your children, but most importantly, you're doing it for yourself, because at the end of the day, mm-hmm. they don't have a present father without you having that internal self-dialogue and understanding that you can create something new for your children and you can show them a new way.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like, you don't. Yeah. I just, I've definitely learned that all you can control is you. Like, we don't have control over anything but ourselves. Like, so
going back to family and being able to create this new beautiful paradigm for yourself, it's really fun because it will be edited out, but Matt's sweet daughter came into the conversation, and it's just so sweet to see you as a dad, and I'm so proud of you. So I do want to also just say that and acknowledge that, having gone through my own experience with mental health, I know that it's not easy. I know that it's a daily commitment to yourself and essentially then for your family to put in that work. And it's not easy. And I would imagine that it's almost like training yourself. You've done multiple Spartan races and you've trained yourself in a physical capacity, but now you get to do it with the mind.
Yeah. This is harder than anything I've ever done. And I've done some Spartan races, some crazy Spartan races, which are physically hard, performance wise, but this is a race you can't leave. This race doesn't end. Like, this one keeps going. And so, it's just been I feel like I'm definitely on the other side of the mountain, but that doesn't mean there's not any more mountains to come in the future. Number one. But I feel like I can, now that I have a better understanding of myself mentally, I feel like I can get through anything. And that's really what I think self-awareness is, why it's so beneficial. Because you can realize that you can deal with any problem that comes up in your day-to-day. Especially as parents, when you start to get super frustrated with a tantrum or something like that, where we've all been in public and we've seen the kid throw a tantrum, and then we've seen the parent who reacts in a way where we're just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to keep walking. If that parent was more self-aware, they would probably realize hey, I'm just angry. I'm getting frustrated at my child who cannot figure out all these emotions they're feeling right now. And I'm able to slow it down. My wife, being the mental health professional she is able to slow that moment down and realize she's just dealing with a lot of big emotions right now, and she doesn't know how to get them out. And so they come out in a tantrum. And so lots of big feelings. And so the fact that we have that awareness means that we are going to teach our daughter that it is okay to feel shame. It is okay to feel sadness, anger, all that stuff. You can feel all of it, and it's safe to feel. Mm-hmm. Whereas some of us may have been taught that feeling anger is unsafe, or feeling sadness there's no space for your tears. There's all that stuff isn't safe to feel, because our parents weren't aware of how to deal with that stuff. And so they just got angry. And as children, something that I learned at Bold is we do literally anything and everything as children to nurture our relationship with our parents, because just simply being organisms that are trying to survive, as children, we know that our parents feed us, they clothe us, they take care of us. There's just this animalistic instinct to do whatever we have to do to keep that relationship with our parents whole. And so if that means I have to bottle up my anger and never let it explode, never let it out, and then that's what I have to do. And so that's not healthy. So when you feel that anger and you want it to go out towards that parent, if it can't go out, it just kind of dumps back in on you, and you are forced to deal with it. And so finding the way to release that, finding the way to feel that in a healthy way, whatever that healthy way is for you, is it's huge. It's huge. And I have that now. And I wouldn't have had it if I didn't go through this whole process. So yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting how some of the hardest things that we can go through can be an opportunity, and something that I think we often hear is life is happening to us, but instead changing that script and saying that life is happening for us. And with those hard things that can present themselves, really peering into them and taking a closer look at how we can change the script and write a new story for ourselves.
Yeah. Putting a positive spin on things is huge. Knowing that things like, I may feel like crap right now, but that doesn't mean I'll feel like crap an hour from now or a day from now. So it's about endurance. It's about perseverance. It's about sitting with uncomfortable emotions, feeling them, being in them. Because they can't hurt you. They're not fun to feel. But you're going to be okay. You're going to survive them. It's not anything physical that you're going to have to like call 911 for. Unless you're like obviously having like a crazy episode, but which happens. But I think at the end of the day, like we're all going to go through experiences and things are going to happen to us because that's the way that higher power, whatever you believe in, wants them to happen for you. I am a huge believer in things happening for a reason. And so this was just a wake-up call for me. That vacation back in Cabo that just woke me up, helped me realize, like, hey, Matt, you're a dad now. You can't be this party animal anymore. And I'm glad that it happened. So I can say that now. I can say that it was a really good thing for me.
And I want to say, you could be a party animal. You're choosing not to. You're making the conscious decision to not, because there's a lot of people that haven't woken up yet from that dream, from that state of thinking that they have to be in that loop of feeling miserable and self-sabotaging themselves to not get out of that place. But you did do your due diligence. You sought help. You called upon your community. You did the work, which is the hardest part. Doing the work is the hardest part. No one tells you that going through a spiritual, mental, physical awakening, because it's mental, it's all of it. You're hitting all of those points when you're going through something like you went through. No one tells you it's going to be as hard as it is.
Yeah, that's 100% fact. Like, you see people struggling. Like, I've got a friend who's dealing with a lot of stuff right now, and you see how much he's struggling, and he's choosing substance to like numb out that pain. And I know at his core he's a good person, and he wants to do what's best for him and his family, but there's just so much stuff there to deal with, and it's not going to happen quickly. And so he's sticking with what is just getting him through each day right now. And it may not be the healthiest thing. But my hope is for him that he chooses eventually to find that self-awareness and realize, like, I think this brings up a good point, because like at the end of the day, you have to have your motivating factor to get better and to grow and to just keep you going in the hardest of times, right? Like, and we can talk about like when you're out on running a marathon and like what's going to get you to that finish line. But if we're talking about like the marathon of life, like that has to be something, that motivating factor has to be something immense, something incredible. And it's got to be something good that you want for yourself. And for me, it was my family and just being fun dad again, because depressed dad, anxious dad is not fun dad. And that was my motivating factor. Was I want to be there for my family. I want to be there to help my wife. Like, I see she's struggling with me going through all this, raising our 1-year-old. And so at all costs, like, I am going to figure this out. And so, like, everybody's got to find that motivating factor for themselves. But they also have to, like you said, stare it in the face and do the work and know that it's not going to be easy. And that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. And it's going to be very, very uncomfortable. But I think you just have to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You told me, I think, that sometimes it feels like you're buried, but what if you view it as being planted to become something better? And just, like, do journal, go for walks, do some breathing exercise, find like what brings you happiness, because that's definitely been a part of it for me. Is like, when I get down on myself or stuck in a catastrophe, that's what I do. Is I do something for myself that makes me feel good. And for me, that's going to a coffee shop and getting myself a good coffee instead of just like a Keurig pot or something like that, and writing in my journal, reading a book, playing a cell phone game, something I get to do on my own time, you know. Sorry if you can hear my dog in the background, but so just that would certainly be a big piece of the puzzle for me, at least, is doing things for yourself that make you feel nice when you're going through this super hard time in your life, is trying to find ways to reward yourself. Like, when I finished Bold, the 10 weeks at Bold, I bought myself a new Apple Watch. I was like, okay, this is a graduating gift at Bold. I'm going to go ahead and get myself an Apple Watch because I need one. And mine was like 7 years old or something like that. You got to do nice things for yourself.
Yeah. Celebrate yourself, right? And finding the joy in the midst of all the hard things that we go through. It's just like the seasons. And essentially what you've done for yourself is you've exercised the mind just as much as you exercise your muscles. And it's just a new muscle that you get to exercise.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Like, it's crazy. It's definitely crazy. It's a harder muscle to work out because you can't really like pick up a weight or do 10 reps of something or go run a mile. Like, this is stuff in between your ears. And there's books you can read. There's podcasts like Your Beautiful Podcast you can listen to, and just all aimed at learning, at self-growth and things like that. Like, we gotta want that for ourselves, you know, because we can all get comfortable in like just doing life. And at the end of the day, you get to decide your happiness. So if you're happy doing none of that self-growth stuff, then, and you're not hurting anybody, then just keep doing you. But for some of us, when we face a little bit extra pain that's a little hard to deal with, that we don't know how to deal with, we got to do something about it. And we have, you and I at least know that we have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last question.
Okay.
What would your piece of advice or offering to these listeners be for someone who is potentially struggling with their mental health?
Oh, man, being the coach that I am, I'm going to quote Nike and say, just do it. Like, it's that first step is the hardest. Actually, that first step is hard, and all the steps after it are even harder, is what I will say. because continuing to get up and face those emotions each day is going to get harder and harder before it gets easier. Because you're going to learn more about yourself, but the only way that you get to learn more about yourself is by digging up all that junk. And actually just learned this term in therapy with my therapist last weekend, but I forget the term. But essentially the idea is like when you get a really dirty wound, you've got to like clean out the wound, like clean the dirt out of the wound so that it can actually heal. And so that process is not fun, as you can imagine. But if you're in that part of your journey right now where you're stuck on this hamster wheel of just getting drunk every day or just numbing out the pain in unhealthy ways, like if you're in that part of your journey, I can tell you that it's not going to be easy, but you can do it. You can do it. Find the people that believe in you that you can do it. Talk to them, call them as much as you can. It's not gonna be easy, but you will get through it. You will. And you don't got to do it by yourself. That group setting at Bold was great. There's something to be said for groups, talking to people, helping each other along. Like all those people I went through group with, we all helped each other in our own way. You may feel like crap about yourself, but you can be the compassionate voice for somebody else who needs it. And so I was going through this incredibly tough time, but I hope I helped some people in the group that I was in get through their own journey as well, like they helped me.
I'm sure you did. That's the beauty of community and being able to mirror back that intentionality and that love.
Yeah, that certainly is.
Yeah, we can't do this life alone, and we're not meant to. We're mammals. So it goes back to what you were saying earlier about knowing that we need that connection.
Yes, which is what your podcast is about. I love that. It's a good place.
Of course. Yeah, this has been so great. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm grateful for our journey, our friendship, and all the ways that we've been able to support each other over 20 years. So thank you.
And we'll do many more decades to come.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for your honesty and your transparency and your vulnerability. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I definitely was glad to be on here, share a little bit about what I went through, and it's only the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully your listeners are able to relate and maybe learn something.
Yeah. Thanks, Maddie. I love you.
All right. Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey there. It's Danae again. Just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and energy with me. If this podcast resonates, please like, subscribe, follow, and share if you're willing. Reviews help too. So if you're feeling the vibe, please leave a review where you can. Sending all the love. Peace.